Your husband has been paying me to act as his mistress, the neighbor confessed. Part 1. Confession. He has been paying me for the role of mistress, the neighbor explained, nervously fiddling with the fringe of her scarf. He wanted to test your loyalty. Marina stood frozen with a cup of coffee in her hand, caught off guard by the revelation. A thought crossed her mind. I had consulted with a couple in a similar situation just yesterday. Vera, have you fallen from the sky? She tried to laugh it off, but it sounded more like a nervous laugh. Yes, I have. Vera plopped down in a kitchen chair. $2,000 for a month's worth of casual meetings with you, trying to find out about your private life. I may be an aspiring actress, but I'm not so naive that I couldn't play the part of a nosy neighbor. Marina mechanically sipped her cold coffee, the bitterness on her tongue mingling with the bitterness of realization. All those delightful gatherings over tea, intimate conversations, chance encounters at the entrance. Was it all a sham? For a long time, his voice trembled treacherously. How long have you worked for him? A month ago, after that corporate event, you returned past midnight, Vera sighed. At first, I thought it was easy money, just chatting with a neighbor. She hesitated. You turned out to be so cool, and these stories about your work and how you help couples. Anyway, I can't be part of this anymore. Your husband is a real nutcase. Marina set her cup down on the table, her hands shaking. Corporate, of course. A month-old image flashed before her eyes. She had returned late, tipsy with her hair disheveled. Andre said nothing at the time, he just stared at her with an unreadable gaze. You know what's the worst thing? Marina said with a sad smile. I'm a family psychologist. Every day I hear stories of betrayal, distrust and suspicion. And here you are, up to your neck in it. Maybe that's because you're a psychologist? Vera leaned forward. He'll probably get into trouble. They say his wife listens to other people's secrets all day, and suddenly. And what if she is like that? Marina finished. God, 10 years of marriage, down the drain. The phone on the table rang, reminding her of her first client in an hour. Marina imagined herself sitting in her comfortable chair, nodding professionally and giving advice about trust and open dialogue in a couple. She shuddered. You know what, she said resolutely, I'll talk to him tonight. I'll ask him straight out. What the hell is going on? Vera became nervous. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that. He also asked me to sign some kind of non-disclosure agreement. I don't care. Let him choke on his contract. Tell me, what else did he ask you to find out? Oh, a lot of things. Vera shifted in her chair. He casually asked me to inquire about whether you worked longer than usual or if one of your clients was particularly persistent in seeking your services or about those corporate events that you organize. Well, Marina began to pace around the kitchen. About that handsome guy from the 3rd floor, did he come up with that too? Yes, Vera smiled guiltily. Andre just rolled up a script. They say I saw you having a pleasant conversation with a dashing man at the entrance. It's so easy. And I, the fool, made excuses that the new neighbor asked for a repair consultation. The phone rang again. Marina grimaced and looked at the message from her husband. Dear, maybe we should go home early today? Miss you? That's right. An actor, she said through gritted teeth. You know, Vera, I've noticed something amiss. He's been acting strangely for the past month. The presents are unexpected, the dinners are romantic. And yesterday, I suggested going to the beach saying, it's been a long time since we've had a break. Marina said professionally as if she was a psychologist, guilt. A classic case. Someone does something wrong and tries to make up for it by being extra attentive. The phone rang in the hall. Marina tensed up. Only her colleagues from the psychology center had that number. Hello? She tried to keep her voice steady. Yes, Olga Petrovna. No, I remember about the couple today. Of course I'll be there by 2. After hanging up the phone, Marina leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. In an hour, she had to meet with a couple where the wife suspected her husband of infidelity. Just like in a joke, a shoemaker without boots, she smiled bitterly. Listen, maybe. Vera hesitated. Maybe there's a reason for all this? You know the saying, husband and wife are made of the same stuff? Both of you. How should I put it? You're messing with each other's heads. You're like a psychologist, he's like paranoid. Marina slowly turned to her neighbor. You know, you're right. We're both obsessed with control. I'm at my office, he's at home, I help people, he hires people. Vera finished. Have you ever experienced these checks before? Marina considered the situation. Memories from the past flashed before her eyes. Andre checking her phone by chance, stopping by her workplace and asking strange questions about male clients. Damn, she slapped her forehead. How could I not have seen it before? It was there all along, but he's here now. He's completely unhinged. Vera leaned in. What are you going to do? Marina looked at her watch. The first customer was 40 minutes away, and she had a couple of meetings today. First, I will go to work, then I will arrange a family therapy session with my husband in the evenings. It will be free. The Psychological Assistance Center greeted Marina with the familiar scent of coffee and the subdued sounds of classrooms. Normally, this ambiance had a soothing effect, but today it was all irritating. The overly bright decorations in the lobby, the creaking chairs, and especially her own reflection in the mirror. Oh, you look a bit disheveled today, remarked Olga Petrovna, glancing into the office. Are you all right? Yes, it's just that my husband hired someone to keep an eye on me, and I didn't realize it, Marina almost blurted out. I just didn't sleep well, she said with a tight smile. Are the clients here yet? They're waiting in the waiting room, the mentor said hesitantly. It's not a simple case. Svetlana said her husband was watching her. Marina almost choked on her water. What do you mean watching? Oh, you'll see for yourself. It's a mess, Olga Petrovna shook her head. It's like something out of a movie. I hired a private investigator. No, well, that's too much, Marina could barely contain her nervous laughter. Svetlana was a slim blonde with sad eyes. Her husband, Igor, was a well-groomed man in an expensive suit, nervously tapping his fingers on the armrest. So you think it's normal to spy on your spouse? Marina tried to sound professional. What else could I do? Igor exploded. She started coming home late, some meetings. And then I found a receipt from the restaurant. Which was from a company event, Svetlana added wearily. I've explained it 100 times. Marina felt a wave of nausea rising in her throat, it was all too familiar. Tell me, Igor, she leaned forward, don't you think the act of surveillance itself is already destroying trust? What about betrayal? Betrayal? He chuckled. Isn't constant lying a betrayal? What kind of lie? Tears rang in Svetlana's voice. That I'm building a career? That I have new interests? Or the fact that I don't stay at home like your mother used to? My dear, they are simply reflections. Marina reflexively turned the pen in her hands. Her husband also often reacts with pain when she achieves professional success. You see, she put down her pen, let's discuss control. Why are we so afraid of losing control over our loved ones? The phone in her bag vibrated softly. Andre, I bought your favorite cake. I'll be waiting for you tonight. Marina closed her eyes for a moment. A thought crossed her mind, but I teach people to be truthful. I emphasize the importance of communication. But now what? I'm sorry, she opened her eyes, let's return to your situation. Part 2. The Revelation. The brownies were on the kitchen table, serving as evidence. Marina massaged her temples with her fingers, her head was pounding after a long day at work. Andre was busy at the stove, whistling a tune. Honey, you look pale, he said, glancing over his shoulder with concern. Had a rough day? It's been a good day, Marina replied with a wry smile, watching her husband from behind. His shirt was perfectly pressed, as always. Hair to hair. The epitome of perfection. How much did you say these cakes cost? What are you talking about? She asked casually. I don't remember exactly. Andre shrugged, stirring the sauce. What about it? Just like that. I'm trying to figure out how much a clear conscience is worth. The spoon paused above the pot. Andre slowly turned around. What do you mean? 2,000 is, of course, better than cakes. Marina stood up, feeling her insides tremble. Tell me, aren't you disgusted? Hiring a neighbor to spy on your wife? The color gradually faded from his face. For a moment, the kitchen was so still that you could hear the rain pattering against the window. Vera, he said, his voice turning cold, I knew you couldn't be trusted. Actors? Marina almost shouted, so you don't trust my wife either? After 10 years of marriage? What about that? Do you really think I could? But you can, he suddenly burst out. You listen to those people every day, clients. All those stories about cheating, starting new lives, I stopped loving him. Do you think I don't see how you've changed? In what way have I changed? She was taken aback. Directly. Andre nervously ran his hand through his hair, ruining his perfectly styled hair. You used to be warm and approachable. And now? Always at meetings, conferences, training sessions. You pretend to be a cool professional. Acting like yourself? Marina felt a sudden surge of emotion. I am an expert. I assist people while you are at it, she said, her voice filled with indignation. While you pretend to be a private investigator. Defending our marriage. Andre slammed the pot on the stove. You can see for yourself how many marriages fail. Every day, you delve into other people's personal affairs and bring this disease home. An infection? She laughed hysterically. So my job is the disease? What's wrong with you? The sauce on the stove began to burn. The smell of burning filled the kitchen, but nobody even moved to turn off the stove. You know, Andre said, his voice barely above a whisper, when Katya left me, she started by saying she had grown professionally. Ah, so that's it. Marina threw up her hands. Your ex-wife. My goodness. That was 15 years ago. And still you are. Don't twist it. He slammed his fist on the table. I can see the familiar signs. Your tardiness, those enigmatic smiles after work. What kind of smiles are you talking about? Marina exclaimed, clutching her head. I'm smiling because I helped someone. Because I made someone's life better. And you turned our home into a police station. I just wanted to make sure. She approached her husband. My loyalty? Or in your imagination? You know what's funny? I consulted with a couple who had the same problem today, and you know what I realized? Andre remained silent, looking at her. I realized that all these checks, surveillance, and suspicions are not about loyalty. They are about your fear, about your self-doubt. Don't you dare, he began. No, don't you dare. Marina felt her tears streaming down her face. Don't you dare destroy what we have built together for a decade. Don't turn our lives into a cheap detective novel. And most importantly, don't use my profession to hide your insecurities. The kitchen was silent, only the sound of water dripping and the sizzling of the sauce filled the air. Andre stood there, his head bowed, his perfectly ironed shirt suddenly looking crumpled and worn. You know what's worse? His voice was hollow. When you started as a psychologist, I was proud. Truly proud. But then... Then what? Marina wiped her tears away with the back of her hand. Then you became different. Stronger. More independent. A better judge of character than me. He smiled sadly. And I'm still the same scared IT guy who can't lose the woman I love. Oh, my God, Andrew. She shook her head. You really think I can? That these 10 years mean nothing? And that client of yours, do you recall? The one who, after 15 years of marriage, fell in love with a colleague. He looked up. You came home looking strange. He said, can you imagine? Sometimes love just disappears. Marina froze. She remembered that incident. The shock of how easily something that seemed eternal could crumble. So that's what it's all about. She slowly sank into a chair. Did you start following me after that conversation? He turned back to the window. At first, I just started noticing. Anything. How long you were at work. How excited you got talking about your clients. How she stopped sharing things with me. Because you stopped listening. She slammed her hand on the table. You started looking for a hidden meaning in every word. I'm talking about work, you're thinking about cheating. When I talk about clients, you see a threat. It wasn't me who stopped sharing, it was you who lost trust. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off. The sauce was completely burned. Andre automatically went to the stove, but Marina stopped him. No, let it burn, as a symbol of what you turned our marriage into. Andre turned off the stove and opened the window. The cool evening air rushed into the kitchen, dispersing the smell of burning. You know, Marina suddenly laughed, but somehow shaky. I always tell clients, don't hold back, tell me how you really feel. Sometimes quarrels can be good. And myself. I was quiet when I felt your mistrust. I was quiet too. He sat heavily on the chair across from her. I was afraid to look weak, like a man, but jealous like a child. And instead of talking, I hired a neighbor. Bravo, just bravo. She pulled the elastic band out of her hair and ruffled it. Listen, what if Vera said that I really was? Well, with someone else? Andre turned pale. I don't know, he said. They would probably have killed both of them. You're lying, she shook her head. You would have started suffering silently. Like now, as always. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. They exchanged glances. It's probably Vera, Marina stood up. She's probably worried about how it ended. Don't open the door, he grimaced, it's a shame. Are you ashamed? She stopped in the kitchen doorway. Wasn't it shameful to pay someone to spy on your own wife? The call was repeated more insistently. Well, let him come in, Marina decided. I want to tell him in front of his wife why he's doing all this circus. Vera stood on the threshold, disheveled and with red eyes. Hello, she looked from Marina to Andre, who was standing at the back of the hallway. I wanted to drop off. She held out an envelope. What is it? Marina didn't move. Money. That's all he paid, Vera sniffed. I can't hold on to it. How dirty it is. Marina started, but Andre abruptly interjected. No, wait. Let him come in. Since we're having a circus, let's have the full cast. Vera slipped into the apartment, sidestepping the awkward silence in the hallway. Come into the kitchen, Marina said through gritted teeth. It just smells like burning. To the point. Oh, and what was burning? Vera sniffed and stopped when she caught Marina's murderous gaze. Our dinner. Our marriage. Our trust. Marina began ticking off her fingers. Should I continue the list? Look, I didn't mean to. Vera plopped down on the chair, the same one she sat on in the morning. I really thought we'd fool around a bit and that's it. And then what? Andre glared at her. Have you decided to tell me everything? Do you think you've saved your family? No, Vera suddenly said firmly. I just realized that both of you are like children, honestly. One is afraid to say it's scary, and the other is afraid to ask why. Who are you addressing your words to? Andre started, but he stopped when Marina suddenly burst into laughter. But she's right, Marina said through laughter. We really act like children. I'm a professional psychologist, and you're an adult, yet we behave like toddlers in a nursery, asking each other, what did you do? And, who were you with? That's exactly it. Vera chimed in, emboldened. Do you know what's the funniest? Every time I talked to Marina, I thought, wow, she's so genuine. And then I had to write a report about her. She glanced at Andre and said, paranoid. What kind of report? Marina abruptly stopped laughing. Well, you know. Vera cringed. According to the form. He also gave me forms. Date, time, topics, suspicious moments. The forms? Marina slowly turned to her husband. So you've developed the forms? Andrew blushed. What's the big deal? I just wanted to organize it. Systematize my life? Marina picked up the kettle and slammed it down on the stove. Oh my goodness, I thought you were just being jealous. And you've set up a whole investigation. With forms. Vera suddenly leaned forward. Did you know that he sits in the car every Tuesday when he has a handsome client? Who comes in at 5? Marina stopped herself. Andre, don't tell me you've been following Pyotr Sergeyevich, a 60-year-old professor? The kettle on the stove began to boil, and the whistle grew louder and louder. Andre snapped, how did I know he's 60? You never talk about clients. Just, I can't, professional ethics. Marina slammed her hand on the table. Because it's really ethics. This is the foundation of my work. People trust me with their secrets, but you. The kettle emitted a loud shrill sound. Vera swiftly stood up and turned off the burner. That's enough. Can't you see he's terrified of losing you, and you're terrified of losing his trust? Both of you, be quiet. In the hallway, a door slammed shut, and Marina automatically retrieved cups and began pouring tea leaves. Do you know what I write in those reports? Vera spoke softly, her voice barely audible. Every time I mention him. About how exceptional he is as a programmer, how proud I am of his accomplishments, how I miss him when he works late into the night. Andre was taken aback, as if he had been struck. Really? She's constantly lying, Marina muttered, her cheeks flushing with guilt. I'm not lying. Vera slammed her hand on the table. And did you know what else I noticed? Whenever he follows your work, he doesn't go home but stays out all night, buying your favorite chocolate. It's like he's trying to calm himself down. You're a fool, Marina sneered. You think I didn't see you snooping through my old photos on my phone when I was away. Oh, for heaven's sake, Vera rolled her eyes. Two suspicious people. He's watching you, and you're watching him. Can't we just talk normally? Marina suddenly burst into tears and laughter at the same time. Do you know what I've been thinking all day? I come home and act out. I break things and throw them out the window. And now I sit here and realize how silly it all was. And Andre approached her from behind, hesitantly embracing her shoulders. I was pondering how to defend myself. I had prepared a lengthy speech about the lack of trust in the modern world, but now I realize, I was simply afraid. I was too scared to ask directly, do you still love me? You're insane. Marina turned to her husband. You're so paranoid. He presented the papers. He nuzzled her hair. She adheres to professional ethics, and at home, she provides the psychological support her husband needs. Well, I'm leaving now, Vera said quietly. I'll leave the money here. Stop. Marina pulled away from her husband. You're not going anywhere. First of all, you're now our family therapist. What? Vera sat back in her chair. That one. Marina sniffed. By the way, you were the first to notice that both of us were. That one with a bang. Yes, Andre nodded. Now that you know all our secrets. Vera stood up firmly. Keep the money and go to a real family therapist. Otherwise, two paranoid individuals decide to spy on each other. She started to leave, but then turned back at the door. And this. Next time you want to spy on each other, just talk, or call me. I'm your family counselor for idiotic situations now. When Vera closed the door behind her, Marina looked at her husband. You know, I had a similar problem today, and do you know what I told them? I told them that sometimes the people closest to us play spies because they're afraid to hear the truth, and the truth is often simpler than all the fantasies. He pulled her closer to him. And what's the truth? The truth is, I love an idiot who for some reason thinks that 10 years can be ruined by stupid suspicions. The kitchen was still filled with the aroma of burnt sauce. The meal, which had not been served, was cooling on the table. And beside it lay an envelope containing money, a peculiar memorial to their shared folly. Hey, Andre suddenly said, why don't we go out? Just the two of us? No surveillance, no reports. Marina scoffed, without the forms? He placed a kiss on the top of her head. Just for dinner. And we'll talk.